Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends. Good morning. Welcome to the program. Thank you for being part of it here on this beautiful hump day. Middle of the week, downhill slide to Firearms Friday. We could see it from here. Loving it, loving the weather. I don't know where it's like where you're at, but 27 degrees here outside the studios at the old radio ranch. And we're just loving this look at the potential for spring. Just bring it on. Bring on the spring. Spring on the spring. We're ready to go here today with this Wednesday edition of the broadcast. We're going to talk a little bit today. We got some headlines, just a couple of them, and then we're going to dive into it with State Representative Ben Carpenter, who is going to come on board with us and talk with us about the veto override from last week and what does that mean? And where does it go from here, which we will do a little bit of analysis before talking to Ben here. And then we will also talk to him about HJR 7, which is the question as to whether or not they should put the permanent fund dividend payout into the Constitution. I'm hearing a lot of chatter from Juneau right now that there are many in the Republican majority who don't want this to come up to a vote because they don't want to be put on record on this. And I'm a little concerned about it. And we'll get some talking points and some discussions from Ben and see if he can confirm or deny that or knows what's going on or, whether or not this is actually going to get out there for a vote. I mean, at some point, I know that everybody wants to have all their eggs counted, before they actually bring a bill to the floor for a vote. But sometimes I just feel like just bring that thing out. Just bring it out and let's vote on it and let's see who's with us and who's against us, essentially. I just want to see from that perspective. But we'll talk with Ben Carpenter about that and get the full rundown and see where we need to be on that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then in hour 2, State Senator Mike Shower will join us. And we'll talk with him about the same thing from the Senate side this time on education, as it were, and then anything else that he has working as we make our way here through the last, I guess, what are we? We're 8 weeks. I guess we're 8 weeks away from the end of the session, 9 weeks away from the end of the session. So we'll see what goes on with that, and we'll get a taste of things and see what's happening with State Senator Mike Shower in hour 2 today. So thank you for coming on board and being part of it. It's just oof. All right. So what do we got? What PFD? Jeremy says in the chat room. Might as well kiss that goodbye and get ready for an income tax. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. It's kind of the direction that I'm feeling right now is that this is, unfortunately, the direction that we're heading. But, okay. All right, let's take a look at some of the headlines that we've got going on around the state. And actually, I did want to mention this. The Supreme Court late yesterday, they issued a ruling. They issued two rulings, in fact, in less than 24 hours. And it basically is now allowing Texas, their border bill, SB 4, to go into effect. That opinion sets back the case that the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals was set to hear oral arguments on. On Monday, Justice Alito issued a third extended stay on the initial stay that he ordered on March the 4th to prevent the law from going into effect on March 5th until the court could rule. Then they ruled on the two consolidated lawsuits filed by the Department of Justice and El Paso County and nonprofit organizations. And then the Supreme Court on the 5th overturned the ruling from David Ezra in the U.S. District Court against the law. And then yesterday they denied the request, allowing the law to go to an effect. Now, what immediately happened thereafter was that the Fifth Circuit Court then issued it. I mean, this is a confusing thing, because not only did the Supreme Court in a matter of just a couple weeks issue three different stays and opinions on this, right after the Supreme Court issued their decision in a late night ruling, the Fifth Circuit came in and, but I mean, I guess the long and the short of it is, Texas is now going to be allowed, for the short term anyway, to enforce SB 4. They weren't talking about the law itself. They were talking about the stay on the law. So I guess we'll see what happens with this right now. And of course, the Biden is and his press secretary was frothing at the mouth last night about this, that it would put everybody in danger, and this debases the republic. And I mean, I don't know. It's this whole thing is just this whole back and forth, and this divisiveness and everything with this is just insane. Surprisingly, this was not even on the top. This was not even on the top of Drudge this morning, because I've been kind of following this, even though, again, I know I'm not usually a national guy, but this has been an interesting thing to me to watch. And I've been following it closely, and even I at this point am like, I don't know exactly what's going on. So at 8:36 p.m. last night, the Yahoo News is reporting that the Texas law is actually back on hold after the Supreme Court made this decision, that the Fifth Circuit Court had put the law back on hold, but that could again be reversed as effective. So it's on again, it's off again. I can't, to quite honest with you, I had read three stories this morning, and it looks like, so they put it back on hold on different grounds apparently than what it had gone to the Supreme Court for. So the bottom line is apparently, since the federal government won't enforce its own borders, and the state of Texas was attempting to do it to protect its own citizens, I really don't know where this goes from here. I really don't know what happens next on this, because again, right after the Supreme Court issued that ruling, the Fifth Court went back and put it back on hold again for apparently a different reason. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going to happen here in all the legal wrangling, but my question is, are the people of the state of Texas, and by extension the rest of the citizens of the United States, more or less safe now than they were 2 days ago? I just don't know. Well, then I saw this other story, which we'll get into on Friday, but I'm going to hit the headline just so that you have a piece of it. Undocumented immigrants have a right to own guns, according to a judge. Even though there is a federal law, Title 18 of the U.S. Criminal Code, which legally disallows undocumented individuals from possessing firearms and ammunition, or to receive any firearm or ammunition which has been shipped or transported in interstate or foreign commerce. This judge has said, no, he's perfectly okay to, he's broken no laws. I mean, except for coming into the country illegally, I guess, but he's broken no laws on that. So this is, sometimes I just look around and I'm just like, this is a mad world. And, we're just living in it. We are just living in it. Anyway, so that was one of the first stories. I just wanted to mention it because, again, even I, at this point, am looking around trying to figure out what exactly is going on with this Texas law and the Supremes and the Fifth Circuit and I just don't know. I mean, I feel for Governor Abbott at this point because, again, I think he's just basically doing what his electorate wants, which is to protect the citizens of Texas from their porous open borders on the southern side. And I mean, I just can't imagine any other major country that would be so blasé about their border policy except for us. I mean, we're there. Anyway, here we go. We're going to, what do I got? Oh, I'm running up against the thing here. There is a issue. There's an article in the ADN talking about the education bill and how the lawmakers are basically saying there's just no clear path forward to a new school funding bill. And let me give you the high points. The high points is that the Senate seems a little ticked off that they can't control the narrative here. That's essentially what's going on. They've already said that the move to try and allow charter schools to be approved by the state is a non-starter for them, a non-starter. That they all have concerns about it curtailing the power of the local school boards and yada, yada, yada. Although this is done in several other states and has not been, not used in a bad way. And again, Alaska is the highest producing, the highest success rate for students is coming out of Alaska's charter schools. But, let's just keep doing what we've been doing and remain 49th in the nation on scholastic aptitude. I had to find it funny that Bill Wielkowski is quoted in the article as saying, that look, they made concessions, they've done this, they've done that, and he said now we're being asked to come forward with a compromise to the compromise to the compromise, and all I can say to that is,
welcome to the party, pal.
I mean, this is the same thing that you guys were doing the last few times, especially when it came to the PFD. It was a compromise to the compromise. We came to the table to compromise, and they're like, oh, well, you met us halfway. Well, then you can certainly meet us over here on the next part of halfway. So they're compromising. It's just, again, when the shoe is on the other foot, then there you go. That's what I'm saying. Because it's exactly the same thing that's going. It's like Bert Stedman's whining about, being held hostage, the children being held hostage, just like every person who lived on Kinnick Goose Bay Road or several of the other times that he's done something similar to that, holding other projects hostage that have nothing to do with the bill that you want to get passed, but making everything contingent on that. Like that wasn't being held hostage as well. So, wah. That's all I got to say to that. Wah. And of course, there's all the talk about how the schools will close and the students will be, and the teachers, and it's all going to be the dogs and cats living together. To which I say, wah. Anyway, there's a lot of talk here, basically saying that there's just no way forward. That's essentially the whole belief at this point, and the theme of the article is that there is no way to move forward on this, and we just don't know what to do. Well, and I got nothing to say to that except for okay. I mean, okay. This is the time that you as a parent, in my opinion, really need to reevaluate what you're doing with your children and decide whether or not you want them to be used as pawns in the middle of this game, because that's exactly what's going on right now. All right, we got to go. We're going to come back with more. Ben Carpenter is going to be our guest as we continue here in hour one. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Don't forget, you can always join us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Michael Duke Show. If you want to be here, come on down and join us. We'll return with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Hello, my friends. How are you? What's going on? What's Facebook? Facebook? No Facebook? What's going? There are people all over Facebook. Facebook is good once I searched for Dukes. Ooh, did they delist my page? No video. Spinning Wheel of Death. Didn't even show up in my feed. Had to search. That's weird. All right. Well, I don't know what to say. I may have angered the Zuckerberg god. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what's going on. Anyway, you can always find us on YouTube. I'm just making the point. You can always find us on YouTube. There's only 3 people watching on Facebook right now. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on. All right, let's get this thing squared away and jump over to Ben Carpenter. Didn't show up on my feed either. YouTube didn't show up on my feed either. I had to search for it. Well, there you go. What are you going to do, right? You're at the mercy of the Zuck God. All right, let's go over to Ben and see if we get him on board and in the show this morning. Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Michael. I'm doing well. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're a little low. I don't know if I need to adjust you or you just need to talk more to give me another level there. How's
that?
That's better. That's a little better. How's the head? Does it feel a little soft? You feel like you're taking some blows out there? I mean, it's man, this is an interesting time to be alive, Ben. That's all I can say right now.
It comes with the territory. I volunteered for it, so no.
You did volunteer, no complaining. Just move along. All right. Well, we're going to continue on through the break, and then we'll pick things up with you on the other side. I know I want to talk, of course, about the veto override. I want to talk about HJR 7. Anything else that you have in your queue that you want to talk about today, so I don't miss anything, just in case?
No, we're good. Whatever you and your listeners want to talk about.
Whatever floats my boat. All right, that's good. I'm all good on that. All right, Ben. Well, hold the line here, and I'm going to pull you back into the green room for just a second. I'll make some adjustments on my end, and I'll bring you back here in just a mo. All right, let me get caught up here. Kevin says charter schools are the ultimate local control with a board of parents and the ability for them to vote with their feet. There's little doubt that charter schools are the path forward for our education systems and kids. I would agree. I mean, Jeannie just said Governor Abbott needs to file a suit against the Fifth Circuit for discrimination. They're marginalizing his administration due to him being confined to a wheelchair. It makes as much sense as them overturning 18 U.S. code. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. All right. Total gaslighting by a moped. Okay. What PFD? Cindy says 29 degrees in Soldotna, heading to your second hometown homer for work today. Oh, that would be nice. Good morning, good morning, good morning to each and all of you over here. I appreciate it. You popped up on my feed on YouTube, says Damien. Good. I'm glad. Yeah. The school issue needs to be addressed to make it easier for the charter schools. That's what the governor asked for and was not in the last bill. Districts need to shed their dead weight. Like underutilized schools should be combined to better utilize assets, not just asses on the boards or NEA, says Gary. Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with all of that at this point. And again, I will remind you, the charter schools in Alaska, number one. Shouldn't we be doing more of that instead of being 49th? I mean, it just makes sense to me. All right, here we go. We're jumping back into it. Ben Carpenter's our guest, The Michael Duke Show.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right. Welcome back to the program. Beautiful Wednesday edition of the show. Ben Carpenter, representative from down on the peninsula here, joins us this morning to discuss wood ticks, lunatics, and politics, or something along that lines. I don't know. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about the PFD. We're going to talk about the madness that is going to be the last 9 weeks here, I guess, of the session. And he joins us right now. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on board. All right, let's talk for a minute. Ben, it's craziness. It's blood in the streets. We hate the children. Schools will close, raining frogs from the sky. I mean, I've heard all the apocalyptic language from everybody about how we didn't get this passed, and somehow all these places that have been running with these monies for years, all of a sudden it's just not enough, and now the sky is falling, and that's it. Although on the other foot, they say we're not going to move on this issue. We're not going to move on that issue. Let's talk about the veto override. Give me your thoughts on how it played out, and walk me through the whole process here and what went down from your perspective.
Well, from my perspective, Michael, it started a number of weeks ago when we had a conversation about HJR 7. Not HJR 7, Senate Bill 140. I've got a couple bills on the brain this morning. Senate Bill 140, the discussion on the floor, and we couldn't get support to get the House version out of our Rules Committee. And it became clear to me at that point that there wasn't really negotiations going on with the House. We're business as usual with regard to how the Senate operates, right? They are only negotiating up to the point where they want, and then the conversations end. And it's absolutely frustrating to be disregarded. And if I were parents, I am a parent, but if I were a parent that wasn't in the legislature, I would be very seriously concerned every time that I hear a legislator speak about what's best for education and they don't include parents in that conversation, because that is what is happening down here. The education lobby comes down and says, oh, funding. Every year, 6 years now that I've been in the legislature, got to fund. And you don't hear anything about what parents are asking for. All you hear is what do schools need? What do administrators need? What do teachers need? You never hear what parents need. And parents are demanding better education. They're demanding it so much so that they're walking out of our schooling system. They're leaving. They're going someplace else if they've got the means to do so. And the establishment, the legislators down here that are supporting the establishment with more money, don't have any solutions to that. They just have more money. this should be a problem for all parents. So what we're trying to do, all we're asking is that you give parents more say at the local level, at the school level, over your policy and your curriculum choices and your budget decisions and your leadership decisions. Give them more choice. And maybe that will repair the trust and invite parents back into your school districts.
Well, I mean, we saw this.
They just can't swallow it.
Yeah, no, we saw this recently. Of course, the most visible case was the Anchorage charter school that essentially was dechartered because there was a bit of friction between the local school board and the administration of the charter school, who were doing what the parents wanted, which was then blatantly shown to be true, because after they dechartered the school, 800 of those students just didn't go back into the Anchorage school district. I mean, they lost a huge chunk of kids there because the parents were doing exactly what they wanted to do, and the thing that they were doing the setting up the way they wanted. And they were, the bureaucrats said, no scoop for you. And the parents said, okay. And they just walked away. And I think that's going to be a prime example of what's going to happen across the state if they keep this up. I mean, I agree with you. I think they're focusing more on what the administrators want, what the support groups want, what the union wants, what the teacher wants, not what's best for the student in the long run, and definitely not with the help, the support, or the cooperation of the parent.
Yeah, if the school district's mission was to support the parent and the education of their kid, the child would be taken care of. All right, we're going to make sure that kids receive an education if parents are the priority. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but the parents are the ones that have the God-given and constitutional responsibility to educate their kids. The school system established through the Constitution is supposed to support that. If that's not true, then the state would be able to force parents to put their kids in the school, and they can't do that. Constitutionally, the parents have the right to educate their kids as they see fit. And all we're asking is that you give parents more of a say in their local school.
Right. Well, I mean, as Bill Willick, or as he's quoted in the paper, it wasn't Willikowski, I can't remember who it was, that basically said it's a non-starter. The charter school thing is just a non-starter for them. And as you pointed out, this is really not a negotiation. They're basically standing on their side of the room and yelling and say, you have to come over here to us. We're not going to work with you. And this is the same thing that happened last year, right? All throughout the end of the session, right up until the point to where they dropped the budget on the House and walked away and said, it's our way or the highway. This is what's coming out of the Senate. They're not treating the House like an equal body at this point.
Well, you have to understand also that this is in many senators' mind, this is just a conversation about funding. That's what the purpose of the bill was, right? It's a bag bill funding internet. It's a BSA funding school. That's all that it's about. It's also a policy bill and not an appropriations bill, and we have to keep that in mind. So we're talking about policy, and the policy is let's spend more money. Let's not address the root causes of problems, and we got started on the wrong foot, in my opinion, with those individuals who think that this is just about money. It's not about money. The money's going to come. We're going to make sure that the schools are funded. We need better policy. And the parents, we don't have to prove this, right? The parents are leaving, and your fiscal problem that you have in school districts is largely because your parents have removed the kids from the school. Your average daily membership is down. You would have more money in your school through the BSA if you address the problem with the outward migration of your students.
Right.
If you fix that, you would have more money.
Right. Well, and again, this is unfortunately they're stuck in a groove, and that groove is more money, more money, more money. That seems to be the only answer they have to the question. I've been saying for years that we need to take a look at the education system as a whole, because there's something fundamentally flawed in there. Because again, our graduation rates and our achievements and our aptitudes have been going down and down and down and down each year. And I said, we can't just keep saying throw more money at the problem because something is fundamentally broken. You just don't keep throwing more flour into a cake because it's not working right. You've got to actually analyze what's going on and figure out what's not making it work correctly. But that just seems to be the answer right now. So we saw what happened in the vote. And now, of course, the big question becomes, so where do we go from here? Obviously, the BSA increase is now dead. There was a bill that was talking about moving the charter schools and allowing for it to be, but that's gone nowhere. The governor had his bonus bill that was also in a committee, and now it's going. I mean, is anything going to change, or is this just going to become is this going to become, as Matt Buxton said, the new PFD battle, where perennially they just bring back a funding bill, or perennially they just bring back a BSA bill, and we're not really going to address the real problem?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what the Senate does when the House passes them a bill that has a BSA increase in it. Are they going to sit on it and say, oh, well, we don't have any options? The negotiations are done. You didn't take our original deal, so we're done. I don't think so. I think when we pass them a new bill that has a BSA increase in it and other policy improvements, then they have to deal with it. So what are they going to do? Are they going to stick to their guns and cut out what it is that we're wanting and what it is that the governor's wanting? Well, that's a sure way to get your BSA bill, your policy bill, vetoed again, and a sure way to get your money in the budget vetoed out. So this is hubris on the part of people who do not want to change. They do not want to change.
Right. They don't want to listen to and the idea that compromise. I mean, the outrage from Senator Stedman recorded in the paper yesterday about how all these people were being held hostage again, which is ironic, with his track record of holding people hostage over projects and everything else, public safety projects. And again, Wilikowski saying, you're now asking us to compromise from a compromise. I mean, welcome to the party, pal. I mean, the PFD issue, we're willing to compromise, and they're like, okay, come all the way over to our side and then we'll compromise, kind of thing. It is hubris. It is arrogance. And this is what I've seen from the Senate, especially over the last few years, is just this idea that it is last year was just the ultimate example of that. It's our way or the highway, take it or leave it. There's got to be some middle ground in there, Ben, and I know you're fighting for it, but it just seems like there's only a handful of you who are fighting for that middle ground, and the rest of them are just like, we're going to take our bat and ball and go home.
It'd be helpful to just take a step back and also realize that we're not alone in this type of fight that we're in right now regarding education. This is a battle that's happening in jurisdictions all over the United States. Parents are struggling to claw back the control and the power in their schools away from this education establishment that's taking us down the drain. This isn't just an Alaska problem. It isn't just a Kenai Peninsula problem. It isn't just an Anchorage problem. It is a nation problem, and parents have been fighting this for years. We have what some don't have with regard to our correspondence schools and alternatives, right? That's why you see parents leaving our school system. What we're trying to say, right? I'm a parent that has left the school system. What I'm trying to say is we need to improve the school system. So the answer isn't just walking away. You don't want to hear the solutions that the people that have left your school, you don't want to hear their solutions. So how are you just going to force us to come back? Like, it's extreme arrogance to think that because you are the educator, you're the only opinion that matters. And I'm just going to ignore. I'm going to stick my head in the sand and ignore all those parents that are walking away from your education system and your ideas. And I'm just not going to consider them at all. Right.
Right. And again, there's too many options today. There's too many alternatives available today for them to be able to do that and survive. Again, the wool was pulled off of people's eyes during COVID to see that, what was really important and how good the education system was or wasn't. And now there's so many other options out there that people are making their own decisions. Like I said, 800 students, basically bailed out of the whole Anchorage school district. What would have that, how much more would that have been at $6,000 a student for that BSA? But they just lost it because they decided they didn't have their hands in it. They didn't have their hands on the tiller. And if they can't control it, then nobody can control it. And I think that's a big problem. All right, Ben Carpenter is our guest. We're going to continue this discussion. I want to talk a bit about HJR 7 and where we're going from here. We will return with more in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Again, don't forget you can join us out on YouTube or Facebook if you want to be part of the conversation during the breaks. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Ben Carpenter, our guest here on the program. Rick asks, Ben, is it possible to post a speech on different groups around the valley in Anchorage? Need to figure out how to get the message into the parents' social media. TV won't work because they cut and edit. How do you get that message in their face? I think there is a hunger for this message to be heard, Ben, because as we said, many parents are frustrated and many have been frustrated since COVID. I mean, that was where the frustration, the pain point really started, was when they discovered that they had to do all this stuff for their own kid, and then they discovered how problematic it was. That's where they saw a big dump in this kind of thing. But how do we get the message out there? How do we get this, I guess we share this show, we share this conversation with people on various pages, but how do you, what's your thoughts on getting this message into parents' faces so that they understand what we're talking about?
Well, I don't have an easy answer to that question, but I do have some suggestions. First one is, I would say relationships matter. The second I would say is social media may be part of the plan for connecting with people and developing those relationships, but you can't rely on social media. However, how did we ever accomplish anything prior to social media? Well, that's what we need to do. So relationships matter. Being able to have conversations and know your neighbors matters. I mean, this is all stuff that should be just basic 101 with regard to organizing in communities, is knowing your neighbors and getting the message out. We can't rely on social media to get our message. Not if you're a conservative. I post things on social media and I get 2 or 3 likes or 5 likes, something like that. I know the algorithms are against me. So I can't rely on that. We've got to look to the grassroots and develop those relationships and have that human interaction. Is it hard? Absolutely, it's hard, but that's the only way it's going to work.
Well, I mean, look at today's show. Normally we've got 60, 70 people watching the show. Today there's 25 people watching the show with only 5 on Facebook because there's some kind of problem with Facebook. I mean, who knows what's going on? It could be a glitch. It could be, shadow banning. I have no idea. But yeah, we've got to learn to, again, interact with people on a one-on-one, face-to-face basis instead of depending on social media to make those connections. I mean, there's a power in social media, don't get me wrong, but that power can be wielded just as much against us as it can be for us.
I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist here or feed into that thinking, but artificial intelligence is only getting stronger. And I don't think that that's necessarily going to be a good thing for everything in our life. And it's certainly not for getting our message out. So the alternative or the backup that humans are going to need to have is good connections and good relationships with other humans when it's necessary to step away from that artificial intelligence world that is coming, right? And we can't even really fathom where that's going but I can tell you we're going to want to have those human relationships and be able to accomplish things as humans without having to rely upon artificial intelligence in the electrical world. So we better get started. I mean, we're behind the 8 ball right now as it is.
We are definitely, there definitely more. Terry says there's more on Facebook than 25. You just can't see them. I just can't see the numbers. Well, maybe it is a Facebook problem right now. And she's right, because there's more than 5 comments from people in the last few minutes. But again, it just, whether it's true or not, the problem is that my point was, you can't depend on social media to be your only outlet on these things. You can't depend. You've got to go see people face to face. You got to talk about this with your coworkers and your neighbors, and you've got to educate and inform. You've got to engage people. And it seems like since the advent of social media and such has become such a big part of our lives, that it's almost a lost art to go out and engage people face to face. In some ways, Ben.
Yeah, you got to get off your couch or invite somebody over to your couch.
Yeah, one way or the other. Get more people involved in doing what needs to be done. All right, we're just under a minute out right now. We're going to rejoin the radio here in just a second. Ben Carpenter is our guest. We'd love to have you share the show, so that if you do want to get more people involved, how do we get this into people's faces? Well, you share the show. That's what you do. And if everybody in the room right now shared the show, we'd have at least 25 shares out there. Maybe 2 or 3 people would click through on that, maybe. And then we just keep doing that from there. So, all right, we're going to continue on here. Ben Carpenter is our guest, the Michael Duke Show. We're going to talk about HJR 7 and where that goes from here. Again, just one small part of the fiscal policy working group plan that, if we can get anything over the line, it would be great. We're going to continue with Ben right now. Again, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it. Here we go.
Public enema number 1. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number 1, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Yeah, that's the truth. It is the truth. I'm a pain. Welcome back, the Michael Duke Show. Ben Carpenter is our guest. We've been talking about education and the veto override. A final thought on that, Ben. Are there bills that the House is working on that they're going to pass to the Senate that has the governor's priorities in it to get it in? Do you think it's going to make it to the Senate? Do you think it'll make it out? Well, give me a quick prediction on that. We'll move over to HJR 7.
Well, I know for a fact that there's a plan in place to move legislation to the Senate that includes Senate Bill 140 and charter school language. We'll see if it comes to fruition or not. But I know that plan exists and is being worked.
So something is going on right now. We just don't know what's going to happen to it once it. We have an inkling of what's going to happen to it once it goes past. But all right, we'll see what happens with that. Then let's move over to the other big deal, which to me is HJR 7, which is the House Joint Resolution. It's the constitutional amendment that would put into the Constitution the mandate that they must pay according to the statutory formula. It does not put the formula in the Constitution, but it does put the requirement that they have to pay it in there. But I'm seeing a lot of hesitancy. I'm seeing a lot of resistance. And in fact, I'm hearing through some of the grapevines that some of my folks down there in Juneau are keeping me apprised that there are some, even people who have been stalwartly pro-PFD, who would not like this to come to the floor because apparently people don't want to go on record with a vote. Or what's going on with this? Tell me what's happening, and how do we get this out on the floor for at least a vote? Whether it passes or fails, I want to see where people stand on this. And is that part of the problem?
Well, Michael, I've always attempted to start my conversations with the bottom line up front. And I think we may see a vote on HJR 7, or at least a discussion today. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. We talked about the resistance to change with regard to Senate Bill 140 and the education establishment, and that resistance to change is just as strong in our fiscal policy within the legislature. And so with all of the challenges that you have between the different political persuasions, the two branches of government trying to duke it out, and there's lack of trust, right? That's really at the bottom of this is lack of trust. And the only way we're going to overcome that is to have some courage and take a first step. HJR 7 does nothing without the vote of the people. All the legislature is saying when they pass HJR 7 is, here is a recommendation to the people. Do you want this or do you not want this change to your constitution? And nothing statutorily is impacted until next legislature, which is
right
after the vote in November, right? So any resistance to passing HJR 7 is really just a lack of faith in ourselves, lack of faith of the relationships that we have, that we're actually going to be able to make this thing work. And all I'm recommending to the legislature is, let's take the first step and force ourselves to have a conversation that is going to lead to more conversations. And at the end of that, we'll have a better fiscal policy for the state. And we've got to stay focused on what what happens if we don't pass this? What is the opportunity cost for not taking action? It's not that we have a smaller PFD, although that's likely to happen. It's not that the PFD goes away, even though that's likely to happen. The opportunity cost is in our economic engine continues to suffer because the state of Alaska needs to grow up financially, fiscally. We need to grow up. We have a structural imbalance when we have low oil prices and our permanent fund earnings are low. We need to fix that. Not fixing it means other businesses and other people who may want to come in and capitalize on opportunities in Alaska aren't going to do so because it's too risky. The proposition of coming into Alaska with your money, knowing that the legislature is going to look towards business to pay its bills, is risky. So we're not going to see economic growth until the legislature decides to get its act together and produce a long-term fiscal plan that stabilizes our finances going forward. I've presented a long-term fiscal plan of sorts. It's just an idea. It's my idea. It doesn't have to be my way, but I'm the only one presenting one. We need to discuss that long-term fiscal plan, and the only thing that the legislature can do right now is take the first step with HJR 7 to say, yes, we want to see the dividend be part of the problem or a part of the solution going forward, and we want the people to be able to vote on that. And if they say yes, then we have a follow-on conversation. If you don't want to have that conversation, then you're saying no to the first step, and there's absolutely no way you're going to get to the second step.
Right. Well, this reminds me of a conversation that I had 8 years ago with then Senator Peter Machicki when I asked him, why won't you let the people have a voice in this? And this was on SB 26 and the dividend and the POMV formula and everything else. And I said, why would you not let the people, because I think at the time, Governor Dunleavy, then Senator Dunleavy, had made the move to recommend a citizens advisory vote on it because it was such an important issue. And Senator Machicki said, well, it's because people will vote with their pocketbook. Well, yes, of course they will. Yes, of course. But I mean, shouldn't the people have a say in this? I mean, you make a valid point. HJR 7, the passage of HJR 7 does nothing but place this vote in front of the people. Why should any legislator be hesitant to place a vote in front of the people that they're supposedly supposed to be representing? And I mean, is that what's happening right now? I mean, do we have legislators who just do not want to go on record to say whether or not they would support this to go to a vote of the people? Ben, is that what's going on?
Well, I'm not going to speak for other legislators' intentions, right? I don't know what that is, but I do know that fear is an undercurrent. It's fear that we won't be able to change the statute. It's fear that we won't be able to do something to stabilize the finances, and that we'll just come to a standstill. It's that kind of fear, right? It's lack of courage. It's lack of vision on what could be. It's lack of really willingness to work together. I mean, look, the only thing that I'm able to get to the floor right now is HJR 7, but HJR 7 is not it. It's not the solution. The solution is a fiscal plan that includes a spending limit. It includes bills that address the PFD. It includes revenue generation measures. I've brought those forward. Those are difficult things to bring forward, and I don't have the support to keep going with it. Like, I can't do it by myself, right? We have got to come together and recognize, and maybe the only way we're going to do that, the only way we're going to recognize is by hitting a brick wall or falling off a cliff, whichever analogy you want to use.
No, I've used that. I've said that exact same thing. Sometimes you have to hit the absolute bottom before you rebound and figure out that you've got a problem. And maybe that's where we're at in this state. We've got to hit the wall. The wheels have got to come off the bus for somebody to realize that something has got to change. Ben, we're down to the last 60 seconds. I'll give you the final word here.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate being on. It's always fun to have the conversation. If people want to reach me, my phone number is 907-465-3779, or my email address is rep.ben.carpenter@akleg.gov. And I'd love to hear from you.
Well, we'd love to hear from you as well. We'd love to see some of these bills get to the floor. Don't grow weary in well doing, my friend. I know it's a lot of work, and I know what it's like. You know, sometimes you got to keep slamming your hand in that door over and over again, and it's not friendly. It's not fun, but you are doing good work out there. We appreciate it. Ben Carpenter, thank you so much for coming on board. Hold the line for just a second, Ben. All right, folks, we got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show continues. We've got Mike Shower coming up in hour 2. We'll be back with more right after this. All right, Ben. I mean, you're right. I could feel your frustration, my friend. You've been doing everything you can do. You brought every bill forward that you possibly could with, from what I can see, very little help from some of your fellow members, which is very frustrating for a lot of us who have been supporting the idea of a full fiscal plan as outlined by the Fiscal Policy Working Group. And quite honestly, I don't know how to push this over the line. I mean, like you said, at some point, I'm almost embracing the fact that we should just go full throttle and see what happens at the end. You know what I mean? When that bridge appears, we just see if we can leap the chasm. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's how a lot of us are starting to feel right now. I mean, I made a mention of this the other day. Maybe that's what has to happen. We got to just have the wheels come off the bus and then try and pick up the pieces, which is not the way to run a railroad, by the way. You should be a little smarter on that. But I'll give you the last couple 3 minutes here, Ben, for your final thoughts and approbations to the people.
Yeah, well, this process that we engage in legislatively is messy by design. If it was easy to get things like this through, we'd be screwed because lots could have happened already, right? Yep. So sometimes the best thing that can happen is nothing can happen. So yeah, I appreciate the advice that says don't be weary in well doing. It's good advice. It is what we should have as a kind of the foundation for the struggle. But what we really need is leadership, right? We can't have 60 different plans and 60 different directions from 60 different legislators. We really need good, solid leadership that's able to communicate a plan, a direction, and rally the troops behind it. And to the extent that we're not being rallied, that's kind of part of the problem. So
right.
we'll see what happens today.
No. Yeah, and it's frustrating for those of us who are not part of the process, who are just outside watching it. It's frustrating for us as well because, again, we can see what's going to be happening. We can see the end result. We can know what's going to go on here, and it's just frustrating to see people who are essentially in denial that these things are not sustainable and are not going to continue. But again, I guess for us outside as well, it has to be don't grow weary, because we're watching the same thing. But we appreciate your stalwartness. We appreciate you, sticking in the fight. And we appreciate all that you're doing over there. And let's hope that today we hear something on HJR 7 and maybe we can get the votes out there and move it. Even if again, in the long run, Ben, I just want to know where people stand. Do they support the idea that the people have a say over their constitution, or do they not? And I think that's the big question right now on HJR 7. Do you support the idea that the people should have a say over their conversation or not?
Yeah, it's the crux of the problem. And just keep in mind that 3 years ago, we couldn't even have this conversation on the floor, and it went to a government shutdown to even get the fiscal policy working group. So that we've even got a constitutional amendment on the floor is an improvement. It is a step forward, right? We would want more, maybe. I want more, but
right
with what's possible, maybe that is the only thing that's possible.
Well, we want to do it. I hope you get that vote today, because, like I said, I think that would be. At least we would have a yardstick and a measure to see where people are at, whether or not they support the idea of the people being able to have a say in their constitution. And I'm hoping that we get that vote today. So be persuasive, my friend. That's all I can say. Be persuasive, and hopefully we can get folks out on the floor to who are sitting there thinking about it. Maybe they're listening. Maybe some of them are, or their staffers are listening, and we could say, all we want is a vote. Do you believe that the people should have a say in the management of their constitution or not? Period. That's all.
People should have a management of their schools, right?
Right. Exactly. Do we believe in people should have management of their schools? That's exactly it. All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on board. As always, it's a pleasure to speak with you, and we'll be watching closely today to see what happens. Good luck, my friend. Again, may you be as persuasive as possible. So thank you so much for being part of it today.
You're welcome. Have a good day, Michael.
All right. Thank you so much. Representative Ben Carpenter, our guest here on the program. That really is what it comes down to. Do they believe that the people should have the right to modify or manage their constitution? Or do they believe that they're the only ones that can do that? That's the question. All right, let's. Well, that didn't work, did it? Are you with me? Let's try this again. See if we can get. Whoa! Let's try this over here. Let's see if we can get. Hello. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I should always give you the pre-call and just get you all warmed up and spun up and then let you go like a top. That's what we should do.
We start slow. We're slow burn.
It's a slow burn. All right. Well, we just finished up with Ben Carpenter, and man, he had some things to say. So I'm interested to get your take on everything that went down over this last week and where we're going from here and everything else. So you hold the line, my friend. We are just about ready to jump back into this and make this happen. Folks, please like and share, subscribe, ring the bell. There was a lot of problems with Facebook this morning, so I suggest you go over to YouTube right now and subscribe and ring the bell there so that you can get notifications. That was the saving grace for some people. They got no Facebook notifications this morning, et cetera, et cetera. So do your thing. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska at this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning. Welcome to hour 2 of this beautiful hump day. Yeah, I know. People are like, you're so loud in the morning. Sorry. Hey, it is what it is. Wake up. Smell the coffee. It's time to go. Kick the tires and light the fires for sure. It is Wednesday, and that means it is our normal day for the Shower Hour of Power. State Senator Mike Shower joins us this morning to kick things off. We're going to be talking about all things legislative this morning, including the SB 140, the veto override, what went on there, what else he's seeing. We'll get some backstory on everything. We'll talk maybe a little bit about his perspective from HJR 7, and then we'll give him a full segment to talk about whatever he wants to talk about. How about that? Mike Shower joins us right now. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Well, I'm a little more awake than 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I have that effect on people. That's, somebody said, man, you're so up and you're loud in the morning. I'm like, well, turn it down really quietly, and that way you don't have to wake up quite so harsh. I'm just here to spin you up, my friend, and get you going. Lots of stuff happened. Of course, the veto override, fear and outrage, and dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, children having to do school in the streets with no shoes, and teachers out of work on bread lines. I mean, we're hearing the whole thing. We're hearing it all. That this is what's happening because the governor vetoed and we couldn't get the overrides and everything else. But there's a lot more to this thing. There's a lot more going on. We keep hearing about compromise. Now, you're on the outside looking in. You're not part of the Senate majority. But, you get your fingers on the pulse of what's happening over there. I mean, was there really compromise going on? Or was this more of, well, that's a non-starter for us, and that's a non-starter for us, and that's a non-starter for us. So there's our compromise position. What do you say? Is that kind of which one seems to be more truthful to you?
I don't see a lot of compromise, Mike. I mean, there was one or two of the designated speakers from the Senate majority that tried to say, and I think even the House majority that tried to say that, well, this was a compromise because, there was some charters. There was 3 words that said something about charter schools, and that was the grand compromise. Like, what? Like, seriously? That's your position? You guys compromised? So the compromise was a 680 BSA that was more than most school districts actually needed. That's a compromise. All of the charter language school for really making almost all of the charter school language was stripped out. Any sense of accountability measures to the more spending that we're looking at here were never even bothered to be included that many of us asked for. The governor's provisions for several items, including the teacher recruitment retainment bonuses he asked for, were not put in to the this bill. So I guess if your idea of compromise is that you got most everything you wanted and you gave a couple sentences to everybody else, that wanted those other measures, then yes, it's a compromise. If your definition of compromise was, everybody gets a little bit of what they want, then there was no compromise whatsoever. Because, Mike, I mean, as I spoke and a few others spoke, we asked for very common sense and reasonable things to go. And I said this on the floor because I spoke, as did all of the all three of the Senate minority members. And remember, Mike, only one member of the 17-person supermajority voted to uphold the governor's veto. 16 of the 17 majority members voted to override the governor's veto. And there was talk of, compromise, and there was talk of don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. There was talk of, this is the best that we're going to do. There was talk of all of the things that were going to happen if we didn't do it. But as I pointed out, I'm like, so Rep Carpenter, I'll be interested, I didn't actually listen this morning, but what Rep Carpenter, said was really important, that we're never talking about the parents in any of this. It's always the school system, the education system. That's all that's all they were talking about, how important it is. And it's for the children, Mike. It's for the children, right? I mean, there was the emotional pleas from several of the Democrats, even some of the Republicans. And so, he talked about the fact we didn't see the parents mentioned anywhere in this, right? Because parents want to see options, choices. Ultimately, I talked to somebody that's really involved in this entire school system debate, not a teacher, not a legislator, not a government official, very involved in Anchorage. And he said I asked him, what's the ultimate goal here? What are we really looking for? And he said the ultimate thing we would reach here, if we really wanted to make a difference, would be choice for parents. Parents being involved in their kids' education and having choices, whether it was charter schools, magnet schools, homeschool correspondence, you name it.
Backpack funding.
But he said, yes, exactly. When 25% of the parents in this state are demanding something different than sending their kids to the brick and mortar schools, the traditional schools, that tells you something, which he's not wrong. Because if that many parents want to do something other than send their kids to schools, in the old-fashioned way, so-called, then that's a problem, right? And that's maybe the telltale of all of this, is that when you have that many parents that want to have a different option for their kids, they recognize that school is not doing it for them. Either that school or that district is not doing well. Their kids are being indoctrinated by the left, which they clearly are, no matter what anybody tries to tell you. Many of our schools are, and some of the teachers are nothing but indoctrination machines. They are. Anybody tries to, say that otherwise is just selling you something, right? So I also made the point, Mike. He said, back to the private sector. I looked at him. I said right to the floor speech, I'm like, all we do is go back to the ATM and take more money. That ATM being the permanent fund dividend. That's what we've been doing for years here. I said, but what are we going to do when we have now set up this massive government per capita, highest in the nation for state spending, for the size and cost of a state government? All of a sudden, we've run ourselves out of money here in just a few short years. In the direction we're going, we're going to run ourselves out of money. And we will have spent every penny of available taxes, royalties, revenues, everything we can get our hands on will be spent on a few thousand state employees. And then what are you going to do? I'm looking right at the speaker and the president. Looking right at them. Go, what are you going to do? They're just staring at me. What? Because you can't, and I think I actually said this. I said, you can't tax your way out of it. You can't. There's not enough workers in this state. We have an anemic private sector that is struggling to get by. We have a state government and legislators that don't even mention the private sector, the thing that actually feeds government, right? They don't even seem to care about it. So, yeah, the parents, important, right? But we ignored in all this debate. The private sector, we never talked about it. Going to run ourselves out of money here before too long, Mike. Look at all these people. I said, show me the money. Somebody told me afterwards, I said, I'm glad you said that. I'm like, show me the money. I looked around the room. One of the last things I said towards the end, I don't know, I talked for 3 or 4 minutes, I think. I looked around and said, tell me, can anybody, I said, nobody in this room can tell me that any of this money is going to go to the teachers and the kids in the classroom. Nobody can tell me that. And everybody's just looking down at their desk. Very few people are looking at me as I'm looking around because they know that's the truth, Mike. The truth is what we did. And that's why I stopped. And Gary, it's kind of funny. So, you got to look at you're supposed to look at the president or the speaker when you're there.
Right.
And, they sit beside each other in the joint session. I had said the same thing on the floor. I said, Mr. President, I'll end the way I did this with my allowance. Now, he kind of smiled a little bit because he's pretty good about, just letting you talk and watch it. But he knew what I was going to say because I said it on the Senate floor before. I said, your kids you have an allowance. You give your kids $100 a month and they come back a couple weeks into some amount of money. So, well, what happened? Tell me. He's like, no, just give me more money. And I said, there's not one parent in this room, in this state, that would just give their kid more money. They'd demand to know why. They'd want some accountability for the money. But this body doesn't operate that way. It's just going to keep giving it to the same system that gobbled it up, that didn't give it to the teachers, that doesn't guarantee where it's going to go, that grew administration and support, that builds more buildings than it needs while we have been losing students a little bit, right? And that's how we do business. I'm just looking around and I'm going, that's all we're doing, Mike.
This
it
is madness, is to quote one of my favorite movies. This is madness.
That's crazy.
That's exactly where we're at right now with this. But like you said, no compromise, no looking at what the governor wants, just this unimaginable answering the call of more, MOAR, more. What's the answer?
More money.
Yeah, it's more. The answer is always more. Not, are we doing something wrong? We've poured continually mounting and increasing amounts of money into education in this state. Contrary to what the narrative is in the newspapers and everything else, a 30% increase in 19 years, a 30% increase overall in education. We continue to pour more money in it. We still have a graduation rate, 1 in 4 don't graduate. We still are at the 49th, 48th, 49th, 46th, 47th, depending on what it is, the bottom percentile for aptitude and educational achievement scores, and yet the answer is always the same: more. Just more money. Not any kind of self-analysis, no kind of reflection on what's going on or analyzing, is there something fundamentally broken in what we're doing? No accountability. And you wonder why people are pissed off about this. This is, because this is the problem right here.
Well, it was interesting to listen to the speakers, Mike, because not one person in that room, not one person mentioned cutting or reducing the amount of the BSA or, even looking for efficiencies, right? There was very little mention. In other words, the point being is that when you looked around the room, every legislator said, we all care about education. That's true. We all do. I started off with that. Then everybody in here talks about it. I said, I have to laugh when the people say, NEA, always about the NEA and stuff, they say, well, they just don't care about the children. My kids went through this education system. My grandkids are in it. Don't sit here and tell me that I don't care about the system. I care about it more than many people in this room do, because I've got family that's going through this, and I know a lot of teachers. And my focus has always been when they say, I don't care about education, I don't care about teachers. My whole focus is on the teachers on this one, Mike, the kids in the classroom. We're going to spend more money. I want to make sure it's going to them. They're the ones on the front lines, cops, right? Firefighters, EMS, soldiers, sailors, and Marines, the ones on the front line. Well, that's teachers in education. They're the ones that are doing the hard work. They're the ones that are dealing with the kids every day, right? It's not so much the teachers, it's the system. And if we're not going to spend the money and guarantee it's going to go to the place where it's going to make the most difference to the ones that are actually fighting on the front lines in this battle, well, then why would I agree to do that? Why? Because I'm just going to send it to administrators. I'm going to send it to bureaucrats. I'm going to send it to a whole lot of support stuff and places like the Anchorage School District that continues to overspend and teach DEI and diversity and wokeness and garbage as opposed to reading, writing, and arithmetic. Right. So I think when you listen to the speeches, nobody said anywhere in their cut. And many people said that, look, we acknowledge that there needs to be more funding at appropriate levels for different districts, right, that need it for different reasons, because it has been flat funded, the BSA. But the lie that even many legislators repeated on Monday was that, well, we just haven't funded education, and that there was going to be cuts basically because it's flat funded, except they never tell you the truth, Mike. And the truth is we've been funding outside the BSA every year. We've been adding money. So they tell you this, and the press and others don't report on it. They don't tell you that, well, actually, we have overfunded from the BSA because we keep adding money every year, right? And there was a ton of COVID money. We found, looking at it in the office, several $100 million that are still sitting around from COVID money, Mike. Hundreds of millions, billions, really, came into the state of COVID money that they didn't even have to account for at this point because we can't find it all, and they still have some of it. So when they say, oh, it's flat funded, we don't have money, you've gotten way more money than you say you have. And nobody in there was talking about cutting. And everybody acknowledged that we may have to spend more. But some of us asked for the very reasonable request, Mike. Just tell us where the money's going. Come back and report to us every year. I said, let's start a student information system so we have apples to apples comparison and real-time data so we can make decisions. Give us some transparency. Show us that it's going to go to the teachers and kids in the classroom.
Right.
Those things alone would allow some of us to go, okay, well, I don't like the amount, but at least I can probably vote with a good conscience towards it because now I know that we're going to have some data.
Well, and that's, of course,
how about some flexibility?
Yeah, I mean, of course, again, the problem with accountability is that they want the dollars, like you said, the teenager, amount of money, give me more. What'd you do? Not going to tell you, just give me more. That is the modus operandi for what we've got going on right now. Mike Showers.
That's not good enough.
Nope, it's not good enough. Mike Showers, our guest, State Senator, District O. We'll continue with him here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, State Senator Mike Shower is our guest here in the commercial break. Jeannie says in the chat room, when you give your kid money, they have to give specific details of what it was used for. Not the same for the school district. It's not accountable, and people are becoming wiser. I mean, look, again, one of the silver linings of the pandemic was that people discovered school choice. I mean, they discovered that the education system was not doing what they thought it was doing. And many of them discovered that the lie that they were told, that you couldn't possibly educate your own kids, was just that, a lie. And they discovered alternatives to brick and mortar. And that's what's going on right now. That's why you're seeing this massive outflow. Ben mentioned it, when 25% of the students in the state are saying, 25% of the parents in the state are saying, we're not happy with the school system as is, and they're putting their kids into alternative choices. That should be a clarion call. And yet these people, just blinders, Mike, just blinders on.
Well, think of the numbers, Mike. It's about 6,000 kids in charter schools and 22,000. We looked at the numbers on Monday from Deed. So these are current numbers as of Monday. These are not old numbers or somebody tries to poo-poo it. There's 22,000 kids in correspondence, or basically what you'd call homeschool for the most part. And then another 5,700, 6,000-ish ballpark were in charter schools. So right there, you have almost 30,000 kids out of 130,000 in the system are not in the brick and mortar traditional school system. Like I said, that's about 25%, 1/4. And a lot of parents reaching out and telling us they want options. They want to be able to homeschool their children, but we give them a fraction of money compared to what we spend on the average is about $20,000 per student. I think one of the senators stood up from up in Fairbanks and said it's 11,000, which is wildly wrong. That's not even close to reality. Different school districts spend different amounts, but the average is 20,000 per student when you look at the numbers, and we only give a few $1,000s to homeschool parents. Where's the rest of that money go, Mike? Ain't that something? They don't ever talk about that. And that's 22,000 kids out of 130,000 kids. And so think of how much money the districts are kind of getting in the sense of that, Mike, that they only give a fraction of that money that they get to the homeschoolers, right? So imagine how much more parents could do if they were getting the full amount that the brick and mortar schools were getting for homeschool correspondence, the backpack funding, if you will. Charter schools, we haven't made it easy, right? They still want to control the system, right? They still want to control the ability to build or have charter schools. And I can't imagine, Mike, why the NEA and certain people would want to control the ability of starting or not a charter school. Can't imagine why. Could you imagine?
Yeah, why would they want to have something to do with that? Why would, maybe.
Might be because it's going to take kids out of the brick and mortar school system into a system that is smoking it and is number one in the nation for performance, Alaska's charter schools. But the brick and mortar schools, the NEA, the school systems, districts certainly don't want that, because then those kids go to charter schools and they lose that money, right? So they don't want to give that up, right? And so they want control over that. Point is, Mike, we're taking away parents' options, which ultimately means we're taking away the kids' options for a better education, which means we're hurting the children. And so when they say it's for the children, I don't buy it anymore, because their choices are ultimately hurting many children in the state. And let's not forget, we are setting ourselves up for debt that this state will not be able to fund or afford moving forward. So it's not us that are going to pay for this, Mike. It's our children. Every time they say it's for the children, they're full of baloney, because they're going to saddle them with debt that they're going to struggle to pay, and we're not giving them the best options for a better education. Don't buy the hype. Unfortunately, it's not true.
It's not true. And good luck getting that accountability in there with all the puppetry going on and the people who are paying, kowtowing to the union power and everything else. Of course, they don't want any of that in there. You attempted to put language in there previously, and they just basically rolled their eyes and voted it back. I mean, why have accountability?
But that's compromise, Mike. That's They compromised. They took out everything we wanted and said, that's compromise.
All right, hold on. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Let's do this thing.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
I mean, that was actually the right word. I'm sorry that he just didn't understand it, but it is that's exactly it. All right, we're continuing on now. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. State Senator Mike Shower is our guest for our weekly visit, what we lovingly call the Shower Hour of Power. He comes in to give us his thoughts on things and get all spun up about stuff. We have been talking about education, SB 140, the override, the veto override. And where we go from here, I'll ask you the same question that I just asked Ben Carpenter last hour, Mike, which was, okay, so we're already seeing the posturing in the newspaper, Wilikowski and others getting up and saying, boy, it's just a non-starter. We gave everything we could give. We couldn't compromise an inch further. And so I'll ask you, where does it go from here? I mean, does the House put forward the pieces that the governor wants and let the Senate riddle it full of bullets? I mean, what goes on at this point? What do you predict happens before we move on to our next topic?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, Mike. At this point, we couldn't do anything for 2 weeks to add any provisions that would give even a handful of legislators the ability to vote for this, which is the reason it failed, right? Or at least a part of the reason that it failed. So whether they look at another vehicle, which I was discussing with some of the House members on Monday night, to put some of these things in there, who knows, right? I mean, one of the things I wanted to mention that I said on the floor was flexibility, right? We should be flexibly targeting spending in this state. If we did so, there are a lot of school districts in the rural areas that have higher costs. I mean, they do, right? Logistics, food, fuel, et cetera. Fine. That's reality of the geography of the state. But they also have the lowest number of students if you look at the whole, right? Fairbanks, Matsu, Anchorage, Kenai, that's where most of the students are by far. That's where most of the population is. Makes sense. If we flexibly targeted places like Matsu and others that are doing well, right, and they're spending and their debt, we could spend a lot less money and say, well, they only need a $200 BSA to cover the cost, and that's all we need. And but out there, way out in the bush, down the Aleutian chain, whatever, those guys need a $750 BSA. Okay, we could do that, Mike, and it would make sense, and it would actually make it easier for me to vote for it because we would be spending more money on the places that really needed it and less on the ones that don't. But because of the numbers, the economy of scale, we would be overall spending a lot less money because we'd be targeting the money and not just doing, every time we got to give money, we got to give the same amount to everybody.
Right. Exactly.
When every school district has said they don't need the same.
Right.
You listen to the Senate Finance co-chair say right now, some are going to get 23, 24% increases. Some are only going to get 11%.
Right.
Based on the numbers. So why are we doing that then?
Right. If you're going to spend,
it doesn't make sense.
If you're going to spend $750 on one of the rural schools with 20 students versus $200 on the schools with 10,000 students, you're going to save a lot of money in the long run.
Look at the economy of scale, and we refuse to do that here. That's one thing that it would help me vote for it. Accountability measures, something as simple as just starting the Student Information Center that a school board member through the office last week sat down and talked for a while and said that, look, I think it was Oregon, maybe they said that just did this, one of the states down there, and they spent $70 million to stand it up. You go, ooh, that's a lot of money. Well, that's about 2 days operation of this state. Operating budget. Don't tell me it's a ton of money, really. We can't spend it. He said, but it was fascinating. After they turned it on, within a month, they saved $30 million. They got $30 million back because they realized all the money they were spending, they didn't need to. Right. So something like that would help, just so that we had real time data. You can make decisions.
Explain to me what this concept is.
So this student information system would come back with things like average daily attendance, how much is being spent, what school districts and schools are getting as part of it, right? All of that data could be fed into the system, and then we would have access to it. D could control it and go now. And he said one of the problems is you have this apples to oranges comparison because not every school district is the same for its expenses or contracts or what they have set up. And we don't, remember they only report on attendance in like October, and they have pizza parties and other stuff to make sure all the students show up. So they show a higher count, and then all the students can be gone or they transfer around or leave, and we never show that again. So they go, oh, we had all these students, when really they don't. The point is, we don't know, Mike. As Rumsfeld said, going to war back in 2000, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. Well, we don't know what we're dealing with because we don't have good data. So the Student Information Center, just a lot of states have it. He said currently it could be done, but it would take more time for Deed to parse through all the data and give us a report every year. Doable, but not as easy. It's like something like a Student Information Center system this one state had, and I keep wanting to say it's Oregon, was it allows them to tap into all the schools, and it makes it apples to apples for the data that it's comparing, and they can just go, look right here, bam, got it. Not, okay, we'll get back to you in a month after we compile the data. It's like real time, right there, pretty much every day kind of thing. So that would help us have that accountability, the transparency in what we're spending. How many students does the school district have? What is it spending it on? Whatever its actual cost. So that would be part of that accountability, Mike. But of course, who wants to do that? Because then you can't hide the money. Then you can't tell people that you need the money when maybe you really don't. Or we don't really know that they do need the money because we can't see that, right? So there's things like that in addition to school choice, right? Somebody in the left and the Democrats talk about, well, I believe in choice. Well, except for the schools when it comes to money, and there's no choice. You got to spend every penny, right? I mean, that choice is always funny. They're for it until they're not, right? So this is the John Kerry. I voted for the war before I voted against it. So you look at the spending is part of it. The choice is part of it. The options for students. And I want to finish up the radio where we're set on the break is that when they say it's for the children, Mike, I don't buy it anymore because they are not allowing for the best choices for parents and therefore the students. And they're taking away choices for better systems like charter schools that are number one in the nation. Alaska's number one in the nation for that. Where we're near the bottom in the brick and mortar traditional schools. And you want to take those choices. You want to make it harder for parents to start and operate charter schools. Really? Because they do better. So the NEA and the education lobby doesn't want that. The school districts, they lose money to those charter schools. They don't get it for themselves. So of course they don't want that. So you're taking away that choice. You're taking most of the money.
Wait. So you're saying it's not for the children? It's for the money? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And the second reason I don't buy it anymore is because we are saddling we're not the ones that are going to pay for the state government that we know where we're headed. We can't afford it. Our children are going to pay for it. So when these people do give you the emotional pleas and say it's for the children, don't buy the hype, Mike, because they're not being honest. We are saddling our children with debt they're not going to be able to pay. And we are taking away choices for better education opportunities for them because we are limiting it because they want them to go through the little indoctrination centers where they get their paws on them young and turn them into little freaking Marxist and communist and whatever they do. And that's not every district. That's not every teacher. Don't broad brush it. There's some great teachers out there, great conservatives and others. But on the whole, we know the system leans left. Like, Mike, when I walk through the hallway to get to the House floor, and there's freaking 100 people in there, and they're like pushing their kids in front of me with red shirts on. I looked at one guy the way and I said, pathetic. You're not helping your cause here. You're actually making me angry by using these kids as pawns. It's disgusting to me. If I was going to vote yes on the way in, I might have voted no just for that reason because they're pushing the kids out there. Look at the children. And I go, you don't care about the kids. You just want the money. So don't sit here and do this. And I talked to a lot of members that walked out. It made them angry. They didn't help their cause by using the children as pawns in this game, Mike.
No.
They made a lot of legislators mad walking out and watching this. And some of them were teachers that told me after they were livid when they saw what they did with those kids in the hallway. Garbage. Right. So yeah. I don't buy the hype. Where does it go from here to finish that up? I don't know. I mean, can this legislature actually get its act together between a Democrat-controlled Senate and a House that has a razor-thin majority that has Democrats in it that all voted for this? I don't know, Mike. I don't know. It's possible that we could come together with some builders, a couple other vehicles in there that we can move fast when we want to. Question is, do we want to? I don't know. We moved fast during the pandemic and we were out within a couple months. We've talked about that many times in the program.
Right.
So it is possible with vehicles out there that something could come together that we could agree on. I'm still going to choke on the amount of spending, Mike, if we don't have accountability. And maybe we'll get outvoted this time. We'll spend the money, whatever. But until I see some of those, until I see ease, the appropriate length for starting charter schools, for correspondence, backpack funding, and some accountability measures put into this so we know where we're spending the money, I'm going to have a hard time voting for it. And, I get frustrated, but also amused when I see the NEA and others attacking myself and other conservatives and Republicans because we don't care about the teachers. When my whole focus, Mike, on this is making sure the money goes to the teachers and the kids. That will never be reported. They will never say it. It doesn't fit the narrative. But most of us, if we're going to spend the money, want to know it's going to the people on the front line in the battle and the kids in the classroom, and we want to see opportunities for them. And that's not what we're doing, and that's not what $680 BSA increase does, Mike, because we don't know where it's going to go. There's no guarantee it goes to the teachers and the kids. So I can't vote for it. And I think a lot of others won't. But, can they buy off a couple votes? Buy a few things in there? Probably. I mean, dude, dude, listen to me. Dude, we stopped this by one vote. One vote, Mike. Right. And you put a few little things in there, some sweeten the pie. I'll give you another $10 million in your capital budget if you'll just vote for this thing. I mean, Mike, that's how horse trading goes. I can see it. So I don't know. Then again, the way the battles went out, maybe we just won't do anything this year. We'll add, 100 million something in one-time funding for this year and start over next year and see what a new legislature looks like. I don't know, Mike. I mean, this is going to be fascinating if we repeal ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
Because once we do that, there's a lot of people sitting in this legislature that will no longer be there because they will not survive primary challenges. The only reason several legislators are sitting in this building is because the downright evil, just to say what I think about it, of ranked choice voting, that voter suppression system, which is what it does to minorities and, English as second language speakers, et cetera, et cetera. Those people will not survive the primary challenge. So
Well,
they won't be here
I'm
2 years from now.
I'm glad you gave me your final thoughts on that, and we can move on to another topic. Oh, no, we're at the end of the segment. All right, so
What?
we're going to...
No, say it so. And that goes fast.
We're good. Oh, my God. All right, we're going to be back. Mike Shower's our guest. I mean, I said I'd give him the final segment to talk about whatever he wanted to talk about, so that's up next. We'll see if he wants to talk about HJR 7 or the Constitution, or do we let the wheels come off the bus kind of conversation. We'll be back with more of the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Shower is our guest. We're in the break right now. I mean, give me your final thoughts on this, and then we'll move on to other topics. Jeez, you got a lot.
Asked.
I did. I asked for it, and I did not put a time constraint on it, so it's all good.
You spin me up. You know what's going to happen.
I know.
Can't complain about
like
that.
I said earlier, I was like, I just get you spun up and then let you go on the table and watch you bounce around on the table. It's like a top. No, look, I'm with you on a lot of this, and I think that's what we're hearing more and more, and in the people that I've run into and discussed this issue with, this idea that parents just want more of a choice. I mean, they could see the failure in the brick and mortar school system, the traditional school system, with 1 in 4 not graduating and these horrible scholastic aptitudes. Now, that doesn't mean that every kid is failing. I don't want to put that in there. There are plenty, especially those with parental engagement and involvement. Many of them are probably doing pretty darn good. But with an overall, when you've got a 1 in 4 failure rate at graduation, and you've got, 48th, 47th, 49th percentile achievement scores for most of the students in these classes, that's just an utter failure. Of course, parents want more choice. And especially after living through the pandemic and some of them taking the bull by the horns and doing it themselves or finding an alternative, of course they want options to more choices. That just makes sense. And so, I think this is a bridge we're going to have to cross in the future. That's what's, that's what we're going to have to cross that bridge in the future, that there's going to have to be a discussion about more choice and backpack funding and everything else, because people are looking for alternatives. When 25% of the standard population is looking for an alternative to begin with, and that number is just going to grow, that discussion is going to have to be had, whether the unions or the supporters of them in the legislature want it or not.
Well, Mike, I guarantee you the unions, the NEA, and the other big unions, because don't be fooled. IBEW, AFL-CIO, all the big unions, including it, they're all together on this, right? Because it's like one has a problem or starts to, then they all have it, right? Because they see where that goes, right? So don't think for a second this is just the NEA. This is a big union push across the board. So people have to remember that. But they're going to fight this with every last drop of blood they have, because they know that starts to loosen their control on the system, and they can't indoctrinate as many kids that are going to be, union wannabes and people on the left. Because how many times I've had my youngest talk about kids going off to college, raised up in the Matsu, high veteran population, very conservative, great values, Christian, going to church and all this stuff. He's like, they go to college for 1 year, they come back, and he's like, they're Marxist. This is my youngest kid now, right? He's like, the kids he went to high school, they're freaking left wing, like way out there.
Right.
Came, they were patriotic, loved their country, salute the flag, and boy, when they came back after a year, they're like, what the heck?
Well, don't be surprised when you send your kids to Rome and they return as Romans.
Right?
That's it right there.
don't forget that that's part of why they're going to fight this, Mike, and tooth and nail, to the last drop of blood. They're going to fight this change for charter schools and backpack funding and correspondence schools, because they know it loosens their power, it loosens their grip. Long term, this has always been part of their strategy. You can go back 100 plus years ago, and they were talking about how they had to take the school system, right? They had to take it over, the education system, and then they can change the children and make more of them, right? More progressives, more leftists. So yeah, Mike, this has been going on for a very long before any of us were around.
Well, and I think
this
that's
battle started.
I think that's one of the reasons why there's always been such a push over the last 40 years for everybody to go to college, even though technically, you didn't need a college degree to succeed. If you were going to be an engineer or a doctor or something that required the specialized education, yes, but it's been such a push that everybody has to go to college. And what do we end up with when these kids go through college, especially when we know that most of the colleges are a very ivory tower liberal environment, and the kids come back transformed? Yeah. It was a continuation of that same kind of project in my mind.
Yeah. And taught by professors, most of whom could not survive in the real world, have never worked in the real world, have never had to be in a business or balance a checkbook. Tenured professors that are flat out left-wing Marxist extremists, and they're teaching our kids. And they have tenured positions where they get significant six-figure salaries, who would probably couldn't work at Burger King if they were outside the academic world. I mean, let's be honest. There are some very smart and intelligent college professors, but many of them would not have been successful. There's that old saying, Mike, we've said on this program before, those that can do, those that can't teach. And I'm talking that professorial world, right? I mean, because they would not have been successful in the real world, starting a business or doing something on the outside. So they are very successful and comfortable there. So, all right, we'll move on.
Hold the
something
line.
else.
Hold the line. Hold the line. Don't go anywhere. We're going to continue. Yeah, we're going to do something else. You give us your thoughts. We're going to continue. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, rather, in case Facebook doesn't work. Okay, welcome back to the program. One final segment here. Senator Mike Shower, our guest. I told him I'd give him the final segment, talk about whatever he wanted. Not that he wasn't talking about whatever he wanted for the rest of the time, but, officially, I guess, at this point. So, Mike, what else is on your mind? I don't know if you want to talk about HJR 7 or any of the other things, election integrity. I'll let you run amok this morning more than you already have. Whatever you want to talk about here. This final.
No, that's dangerous. You just glutton for punishment. You never learn.
Just give it to me.
So what did Rep Carpenter, you said you guys had quite a bit, and part of it was HJR 7. So, I mean, if you gave me the 15-second Reader's Digest, is that part of what you guys hit or talked about?
Yeah, no, we talked a little bit about it. I mean, I'm hearing things, and of course, Ben didn't really want to comment on it, but I've been hearing things from some of my folks that are, keep touch with me down in Juneau, that what they're hearing is that some of these people don't want to bring it to the floor for a vote because they don't want to take a position on it, which I just found outrageous, because all they're doing is allowing the people to have a say in what's on their Constitution. This is not them voting for it just, again, they don't even want to be put on record as to whether or not it should be put before a vote of the people. And I just find that offensive. I mean, that's all this is. This is a simple thing. The people could vote it up or down, but at least give them the chance and the choice, especially with the projections that we've talked about for, the 10-year forecast and the PFD going away and all this other kind of stuff. Please, let's talk about that.
Well, when you talk choice, Mike, it's kind of like what they mean when they say school choice. They want school choice, all right, choice to spend more money and guarantee the school system is going to grow and indoctrinate kids in the way that they're looking at things. But they don't mean choice for the parents. They don't mean choice for the children, right? And this is kind of the same choice here on this. They're okay with choices as long as the people can't choose the things they don't want them to choose. Because what would HJR 7 do? Rep Carpenter's, constitutional amendment that would simply put the the fact that there would be a PFD into the Constitution, because currently there's not. A lot of people are still confused. Maybe some of the program. They shouldn't be at this point for the years we've talked about it. But there is no guarantee of the PFD in the Constitution. It doesn't exist then. It's statute, right? So Ben's amendment would simply say that there shall be a PFD paid every year, right, in accordance with the statute. Now, what's the statute? That's sticking point, right? You try to put the formula in there, that you're going to get too much resistance. This goes back to the fiscal policy working group. As I said many times, because I was on that, and we acknowledged as a group of Democrats and Republicans, a bipartisan, right? Oh, there's that crazy Matsu conservative, never works with anybody, Mike, terrible. And yet every time I'm doing something, it's bipartisan. Like the election integrity of the Chris Tuck. Him and I got it to the Senate floor, and it failed because Ledge Legal never got it back to us until 30 minutes before the end of the 2-year session. And there was a 31-page amendment that we just couldn't look at. Nobody could read it fast enough to know, and had to kill it. But that was a bipartisan effort. My fiscal policy working group that the state desperately needs, bipartisan. But we don't work with anybody else. Well, really? Well, that's another lie. But good luck challenging that one. So here's the point, Mike. Out of this is like it's bipartisan. And the group said very clearly, you have to solve this long term. You have to put it in the Constitution, or we will fight about it endlessly. We also acknowledge that you could not get enough support to pass a balanced fiscal policy if you put the statutory or a formula, whatever it is, in the Constitution. Enough people won't vote for it, because they're too afraid that that's going to limit government spending and tie our hands moving forward, blah, 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 which is never really true, because you can always undo or do something, the next session, you can put another amendment up. I mean, you can always change it. That's not true, but so be it when people say that. But that was the point. And his doesn't even, all it does is just say there's going to be a PFD. And as I've said before, that's a step in the right direction. But the problem, and Rep Carpenter knows this, we all do, is that it's only part of it. You still don't get the whole plan, right? We still don't get the constitutional spending cap change so that it's relevant and actually does cap spending. We don't have anything in there that talks about how we're going to reduce, spending overall and try to make government more efficient and less costly, like the Sunset Commission. We don't talk about taxes. I know people don't like that. I don't want to talk about taxes at all. But the problem, folks, is we're just going to keep taking from the ATM of the permanent fund divvy. We're going to go back to the bank, withdraw more cash until it's all gone. I said that on the floor on Monday. It's going to be gone. We are a few short years away, 4, 5, 6, name it. It's going to depend on how well oil does. If we're able to open up a couple of these fields, get a little more oil, through the pipeline, that ain't going to be enough to make a huge difference. It'll just help us kind of, stem the bleeding, the triage for a while. It'll help us kick the can down the road a little further, but it ain't enough. So unless oil prices stay high, unless the stock market continues to do well, which are both big ifs and assumptions, this state can wither on the vine. We don't have a robust private sector outside of those things. So that's what we rely on for our spending. So my point goes back to, Mike, is that with the way we're going right now, there's less than $1 billion left to play with no PFD, none. And $1 billion would give us, I don't remember rough numbers, $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, something like that per person. Statutory formula was like $3,600 per person if you followed it based on the numbers. But we've already spent all that money, Mike. See what I'm saying? See where this is going? We've already spent it. So You're not going to see a statutory PFD. So that's one of the reasons we were acknowledging this in the fiscal policy working group from several years ago, was if we put it in the Constitution, do the 50-50, at least we guarantee that moving forward that we'll have that. And then we figure out what tax structure and cost cutting, if you will, from Sunset, Commission or anything else to try to balance it out. Because now we are truly getting to the point of the narrative they've been pushing for all along. We're going to have to tax to pay that PFD. No, a couple of years ago, we didn't have to. Now you do. If you're going to have a statutory PFD, Mike, we're either going to tax businesses and people to pay for a PFD that's statutory, or right, we're going to draw down our savings to get there, which is a self-defeating prophecy, because down the road we'll just have less money as you eat away at it, right? It's like having a 401k as you get older. If you live to be 200 years old, you're going to run out of money.
I mean, the first 15 billion wasn't enough that we ate through the seed corn. The first 15 billion.
But that's where we are, Mike. Acknowledge reality. That's what's left as of today. Less than $1 billion to play with. So if we took every penny for a PFD of money left over that's not already dedicated to government, you have a you would have a PFD that's less than half of statutory. That's today. 5 years down the road, there's going to be another 500, 600, 700 million dollars of spending that we can't control. That's already coming. Before we do a big $200 million education bill or 100 million plus or whatever it's going to be, for defined benefit, a couple of years down the road, Mike, the money's gone. We have spent it all. There will be no PFD left. Back to no private sector money. What are you going to do? What you going to do? So I don't know. I think Rep Carpenter's got a great plan to at least a step in the right direction. It will never pass the Senate. It doesn't have and it's not Ben's fault. It's you do what you can do, right? You do your best. But it's not the comprehensive fiscal policy. We're never going to solve any of the problems long-term without it. It's a step, but it's one of about 4 or 5 steps we identified we had to do to make this work and to get enough votes. So they should. I hope they pass it. I hope they pass it and send it over, and let's pull it out on the Senate and make people vote on it. But I don't know if they'll be able to get it done or not. We'll see. I don't know. What else? We got 2 minutes.
2 minutes, just over 2 minutes. You hit me. Yeah, you've got 1 minute. I'm going to tell you have 1 minute. Final thoughts here, Mike. Give me your final thoughts on this whole deal and anything else.
Well, I mean, there's not enough time, obviously, for you and I to go through any topic of importance. But I think probably unless they are able to scramble on an education package of some sort that may be dead in the water and will probably just be adding money back in one time, so be it. In the budgetary process, I think it might be quiet for a few weeks. I think this took a lot out of everybody in this battle up through a vote on the override. So there's not a lot of big stuff I see right now on the docket, the little bills here and there kind of stuff, but this will be fascinating. My last point, and I'll stop here, is that this was fascinating because a lot of Republicans basically snubbed the governor. And the governor has been known to look at that line item veto authority he has in the capital budget. And I will be fascinated to watch if the governor goes, you know what, you guys basically gave me the finger, and I'm going to give it right back to you when it comes to capital budget. And I'm line item vetoing stuff out of your district. It would not surprise me in the least, because you got to be careful on this, Mike. You snub the governor. He's got a lot of power, and he ain't running for re-election. So this is going to be fascinating to watch this year.
I would love that, quite honestly. I mean, I just, if you got the levers of power, sometimes you got to pull them, and sometimes that's what it comes down to. All right.
They called his bluff, and he called them, and they lost.
Yeah, exactly. There's a game of chicken, and guess who blinked? All right, Mike Shower, thank you so much for coming on board, my friend. I appreciate it. We will talk to you again next week, okay?
Okie dokie.
All right, hold the line for just a sec. Folks, out of time. Tomorrow, another day. What are we going to talk about? I have no idea. Don't know. It'll be fun, though. Come out and join us. 6 a.m. tomorrow. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. All right, Mike. Any final thoughts on any of this? What was I just gonna? I was just gonna ask you a question. I lost it. Anyway, any final thoughts here as we let you go?
No, I think that was the one that's going to be fascinating for me over the next 2 months while we finish up, is how's this going to go with the governor? Because I just think, that was not wise on many Republicans, especially I'm really talking the Senate, right? Because most of the Republicans in the House voted, to uphold the governor's veto. And that is a dangerous game when the relationship is already pretty tenuous with certain Republicans in the Senate. And now you basically completely snub the governor on this. And, frankly, Mike, his ass wasn't real big compared to the overall package of education spending.
Right.
And we know that his ask for, teacher bonuses, if you will, spread out over years is effective because it works in other parts of the country. There's data to support that. So,
right.
I don't know, Mike, when you do this is going to be fascinating because, like I said, the governor has been known. You're basically going toe-to-toe with him, and he's got authority that nobody's going to come back and override line item vetoes on capital budgets. We're not even going to look at it. So I think some legislators may have, played chicken and are going to lose, and they didn't have to. And really lose over what, Mike? $50 million a year for teacher bonuses to help the kids out? because it directly helps the teachers, because we couldn't put some clear language on allowing parents to have authority and not be shut down by school districts to start charter schools, because we couldn't put in something about accountability measures, or, maybe a once a year report to the legislature so we know where the money's going. Little things really in the scheme of this.
Right.
And they just had to say no. And so, it's going to be fun to sit back and watch. Like you said, I'm on the outside looking in, so I'm just going to be like, whatever.
Hey, one final question. I did remember it. I had a senior moment there, but I remembered what it was. So the Senate has a binding caucus, and David Wilson, thank you to Rob Yunt for that, but David Wilson decided to come out and vote in favor of the governor's veto. And so is he going to join your little happy trio? Is it going to become a foursome, or?
Well, I don't think at this point, Mike, here's my position.
Okay.
Anybody that wanted to join the Senate minority should have done that before the start of this year.
Right.
Because I am not going to agree to anybody to join the Senate minority in the last few weeks of a 2-year session to cover their rear end, whoever it is. I'm going to say no. I won't agree to that, because they're just doing it for political top cover. Then they're not doing it because it was the right thing to do. And I'm not saying that about who you mentioned, any particular person. I'm saying my position would be, at this point, anybody that wants to get out of the Senate majority for their political career, because of what they've been doing for this 2 years, is an absolute hard no to me, because then they're not doing it for the right reason. They just want political top cover. So no, I would not agree to that. If somebody wanted to leave the majority, that's up to them. They can be either, a Senate minority of one,
I guess
they want to do.
I guess my question was whether they left voluntarily, but I mean, it was a binding caucus. Didn't you guys get booted to the curb for something
but
similar?
This was not.
Yeah.
But this was not an appropriation bill, Mike. This is
the
budget
policy bill.
There's
right.
It's a policy bill, so you can say that, and you can vote how you want on a policy bill, even if it makes someone mad. So be it. So that's on all of the budgetary items and any procedural votes. Those were the binding caucus type rules. And if you vote no on those things, then theoretically you would be kicked out of the caucus or stripped of your chairmanships, et cetera. But we also know, Mike, that not everybody's treated the same. There's a 2-tier justice system in the Alaska legislature, just like there is in our justice system. And some legislators get a pass.
Yeah.
All the time. They can do things that the rest of us get held accountable for. So don't think for 1 second there's equal opportunity and equal justice meted out in the Alaska legislature when it comes to legislators and votes, because they don't.
I think the public is not as stupid as many people think. And when you take a last-minute turnaround coming up into an election cycle, something like this, after you've got a track record going another direction, I don't think people are as stupid as you think they are. Let me just put it that way. So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm excited to see what the governor is going to bring with his vetoes and everything else. I mean,
there's that, Mike. There's some interested in races coming up this summer for these seats. It's going to be, as one of my staffers used to say, get the popcorn out. The oil's getting hot.
Yeah, exactly. Sit back and just pop it right in your mouth as you sit there and watch the crowd. All right. Well, Mike Schauer, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you coming on board. We will see you next Wednesday. Thanks for being part of it.
All right, man. Have a good week. See ya.
All right, folks. Again, out of time. Thank you so much for being part of the show today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow on the program. And like I said, I don't know. I'm feeling like I want to do a little bit more what if stuff. I don't know why. It's just on my heart. So maybe we'll do a full segment tomorrow of what if or whatever. You guys tell me. Send me an email. Tell me if that's what you want to talk about. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.